Good morning, you guys. Happy Monday. I'm super duper excited to be sharing with you guys my story of how I switched from having a hobby, a calligraphy hobby, into starting my very own business that has already spanned almost 9 years, which is kind of crazy if I think about it. Actually, it's already been 9 years. So it's just incredible how God's grace has really pulled us through. If some of you guys are new here, written word has its roots in God's word. And that's why it's called written word, because that's kind of where I started, which was, doing a hobby and writing his word. Some of you guys actually probably might not even know my story of how I started in calligraphy. And the gist of it was the fact that, we started off writing his word because that was part of my journaling. I just found that whenever I prayed, I would often wander. And so it really helped me to write things down. And writing God's word down has always been super helpful, and it just helped me focus, and I wasn't wandering as much. Thank you guys for joining. If you guys have any questions at all, feel free to ask. I'll do my best to kind of gather the conversation around the switch journey. Oh, hey Shay, thanks for joining. And if anything, we are going to have a lot more live sessions this week. So because this week we are reopening the Calligraphy Business Kickstarter. I know everybody's like, Carla, you're doing so much before baby comes, and that's true. Hopefully this will be our last enrollment push before baby comes, which is true, because the next 6 weeks is going to be pretty busy. It's 6 weeks of intensive training to really help you find the foundations to build your calligraphy business. So this course is a masterclass course. It's not going to be for the faint of heart. It's not going to be something casual because it is a little bit more expensive. But I personally feel that the reason why my course is priced expensive, or for other people at least would feel that it is expensive, is because it is a business course. Whenever you take a course to run a business, it has a certain price because the amount of time it took me to develop everything for my business, as well as to come to a point of being able to share all of this information with you, really takes a lot of time and effort and mind space in order to create it. So in comparison to our beginner course, where we are teaching you a skill, this one we are teaching you like a fisherman. I'm teaching you how to fish, right? So it's not just here's the fish. I'm really teaching you to be able to get the skills to build a solid foundation for your business. And this course in particular is really a combination of my knowledge and wisdom from all the years of experience, as well as me trying to note things down and document the process of being able to either launch a product, provide a service, have an online store, or have passive income streams, because having a business doesn't necessarily mean you're always working, go, just like you see me, because I do this full time. But if you have plans to do calligraphy more as a side hustle, that's absolutely possible as well. Okay, so story about how I started as I shifted the hobby to a business. When I started 9 years ago in my business, it was more of an organic shift. I will admit that. It wasn't a planned experience. Although I definitely would encourage you to plan ahead, right? Whenever you start your business. Shay is asking, have you taken any business classes, or did you learn from your dad? A little bit of both. My years before university, I did learn a lot from my dad, just spending a lot of time, in the business, as well as creating little businesses of myself. So that was also a lot of experience from just creating things and having service. So that was my thing, maybe because I just was creative from very big start of my career or of my life, that I always felt, oh yeah, I could do that. I could do that. And my dad always put this mentality in me, and maybe that's just like the Asian mentality, where you're like, oh no, you don't need to be the one designing. You can be the one managing people designing. But that clearly didn't work on me, because even though I went and took business in university, I still felt that I wanted to be in part of the journey itself. Like the creative part is something that I couldn't just let go. And so even till this day, my team is structured around the fact that I'm still like the main designer, main creator, and my team is the one helping me propagate it, whether it's like fulfillment or creating like content, or being able to help me with the students and supporting them. So that's kind of like the general idea of like my approach to business. Like I'm always like really involved, and I love being involved in the business. I know some people like to be like as much as hands off as possible, but I find that building a brand is so important that when it's tied to the owner, because I feel that creates a lot of brand trust and a lot of integrity, and also, in a way, it feels a bit more fulfilling in my head because it's like your life's work that you're putting out there. Of course, the downside of that is that sometimes, for example, now that I'm going on a maternity leave coming in August, late August, is that it's harder for me to let go of things. But that's just a season in my life that I know that we will get over at some point, and we will be able to come back. And so the organic shift from hobby to business was because I started posting about my work. So a lot of you guys who probably have calligraphy businesses here probably started off a similar way, where you started posting about what you do, and some of your friends and family started noticing that you can do this. And that's absolutely normal and completely okay to do that. That's great. It's validity, because you're showing that people are willing to see what you do, and that they're willing to pay for what you do. Of course, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be your clients forever, because most of the time our family and friends are not our target market. But it's just good to know that people are interested in your work. And that's kind of like where I started off. Like I documented my calligraphy journey as I was learning. And then I started doing like little projects. I had a little crafting blog that I started putting my work into it. So it was just like the season where maybe like 10 years ago, where blogs were super popular, where you would like have a little DIY project, you could post on it. So I had a blog just like that, and that's kind of where my calligraphy journey started. And then when we got engaged in June of 2013, that's kind of when it all started for me, because I started doing a lot more wedding stuff, and that's kind of when people started seeing, oh yeah, you could do wedding stuff with calligraphy. And that was like a perfect transition for me. But the setting up of that whole business, the logistics of that, I talk a lot about that in the course, but it definitely was a calculated like business plan type of move for me, because I definitely wanted to consider like what was what business services I wanted to offer, and what kind of what business model would I want to do? Do I want to go online only? Am I in person? What is the deal? Like there's so many different kinds. Actually, we talk a lot about that in the course as well, like the different kind of business opportunities that you can get with calligraphy. Then there's lots. Archu Badu is saying that the coupon code is not working. Yes, we do have a coupon code for the Calligraphy Business Kickstarter, and it's in your email if you have subscribed to our email. If you can send me an email after this, and I will check it out. But I did set it up. I hope I set it up correctly. But yeah, okay. And then yeah, send me an email at carla@writtenwordcalligraphy.com so that I know which code you're looking at, and that way I could check it. And Disha is asking, like, how did you decide prices for your work, the different ideas and design of mine? So that one, I talk a lot about pricing in my course. I'm not going to be able to talk about that today because I'm just talking today about like how I switched from a calligraphy hobby to a business and kind of how I shifted that mindset. But I will say that when somebody approaches me like, Carla, do you think I'm ready to do to shift, from a hobby to a business? What I normally tell people is that, first of all, are you willing to let go of this hobby? Because one thing that sometimes people don't realize is that when you do shift your hobby to a business, that this no longer becomes a hobby for you. It becomes work. And work can be fun and enjoyable, but it's no longer that, like, you're probably going to be doing 90% of it for work and 10% for yourself. And so if you're okay with losing a little bit of that pressure, losing a little bit of that relaxation and taking in more pressure with your work. And because when you are running your hobby as a business, your hobby is no longer for yourself. Like, you are now taking care of a customer. And so the approach to it is very different. Like, you don't no longer have complete final say. While you have artistic freedom, but the client is still like, or your customer at the end of the day, is the end customer, right? So ideally, you'd want to be able to give them a good experience, and like, there's things that change in that shift. So I want you to be wary about that when you do start a business from the starting that stems from your hobby. I want you to realize that you might not be able to do that. And also, speaking about it being a hobby, I do recommend people to have gained at least a year of experience of calligraphy before they move on to a business. And the reason behind that is because in this industry, we just don't have anything like or it's not at least very recognized that we have a certification process. Unlike, say, for example, like a doctor, like, you can't practice as a doctor until you reach like these things, or like you have to take a licensure exam. Like, there's no license to be able to operate a calligraphy business except for like your government's like business licenses. So that in itself sometimes makes it like a bit scary for somebody from the clientele perspective, that when they come to a calligrapher, they expect obviously something really good. And when you are still in that beginning stages of your calligraphy, offering your services to somebody when you are personally not ready to do so is just not, like, it doesn't show integrity in your work, I want to say. And I want to say, usually in the first 6 months of your calligraphy learning, that your skill set is not fully developed yet. There's a lot of things that you just don't know yet, or your letters are just not fully there yet. And that's why I encourage people to, as much as possible, to have at least a year of experience, because that way you kind of like try the very best you can to improve your skill level to higher than beginner, because you don't want our industry to be saturated with beginner calligraphers just starting out, and that now people are going to be scared when they hire a calligrapher and saying like, oh yeah, she's like, yeah, I hired a calligrapher and it was not great. Like, I could have written better than her. Like, that's one thing you never want to hear from a customer. You want them to be like, wow, I could never write like this. Or like, she's an expert, I can trust her. And you building that trust helps our industry across the board. And also, I think it also helps build your confidence when you have had that much experience of calligraphy. And that goes for, whether it's like writing on paper, writing on different materials, because people are going to ask that. And in the course, I talk a lot more about like how you develop your portfolio depending on like the business model that you've chose. But that's like one thing I really wanted to like emphasize. And also, I think like the reason why I want people to have at least a year of experience before they start their business is because once you start your business, it's hard to start learning again. Like even for myself right now, whenever I take up an online course, I really, it's so hard for me to schedule time to learn. Of course you learn on the go, but if you wanted to really like hone your skills while you're running your business, it's so much harder because everyone is like, it's like go, go, go. You're like trying to do the marketing, the accounting, the finances, the operations, the actual client interaction, especially when you're starting out in the business and you're by yourself. Like learning is going to start like dropping down in your priority list. So if you were just starting out in calligraphy, don't think about starting your business right away. Think about learning how to start your business, for example. You can take this course without that skill set just yet, but when you're about to launch it, that I would want you to have that instead. So that's why I gave you guys a year, because I also don't want somebody who would be like, I'm never gonna be ready. Because it's true. There's going to be a group of people that I'm always like, okay, I'll just do it. I'll just like wing it. And then there's people who are like, I'm just never gonna be ready. I have no confidence of doing it. But that's why a year, I wanna say, is generally a good time frame. But this course is going to be intense, you guys. So I also don't want you to take this course unless you know that your next 6 weeks is going to be available to really hammer through this course, because this course has a lot of content, guys. It's like my life's work in it. There's 11 plus hours of content. There's 15 plus worksheets and guides, and there's going to be 3 live sessions staggered in week 2, week 4, and week 6, where I will share a lot more updates about these particular like chunks, kind of like what we're doing right now in this live, but except it'll be a Q&A and it's specific to the students themselves, and it's like a lot more about coaching. And I hope to try to be able to cover everything as much as I can, but that's why, yeah. And also another thing too about like switching my business from calligraphy to hobby to business was that I knew I also needed to gather more skills. Like it wasn't just about knowing how to write nice. It was being able to build the foundations, like the pillars of my business, to be able to provide those services really well. So for example, you wanted to start offering signages. You need to know as much as possible, whatever you can, take a course or anything to really up your skill level in that, because if you wanted to make calligraphy signage, learning calligraphy is not enough. You need to know all the different kinds of signages. You'll need to know all the different kinds of printing on signages. Who is going to be printing your signages? Like that kind of stuff. Like there's so much like things that kind of need to align before you can comfortably offer that service to other people, right? Like you really don't want to be like trying things out in that process. So I find like this 1 year of you learning calligraphy, also developing your business model, and like learning to launch your business is a lot about like growing you know, because sometimes this is stuff that you just don't know yet. I mean, of course, it'll be great if you already had all this knowledge beforehand. For example, myself, like I delved into the wedding stationery world fairly easily because I had a graphic design background. So if you don't have a graphic design background, why would you be offering wedding invitation services, right? You'll need to know how to translate the calligraphy you have into a design and know how to present it to a client and know kind of what industry standards are for like, you know, invitation design, so that you're not going to be tricked by customers or have terrible customer experiences because they don't know what to expect, and you don't know what to expect either because you're so new to it. And that's why I think personally, it's really important to be able to keep that in mind when you're starting it, when you're shifting from a calligraphy hobby into a business, because it just takes a lot of time and effort to be able to do that. And that's why it's not going to be like, okay, I took a calligraphy workshop, I feel like I love doing this, I'm going to start a business next week. Like, no, please don't. Because really, there's so much more skill sets, so much more things to learn and grow in before you do it. Again, you can take this course before you're ready to launch your business, and that's okay. And because, well, this is the only time we're launching this year, and this is the only time, this is one time that we're doing it in 2022. The next time we have this enrollment will probably be next year, sometime late next year. I'm not sure entirely when, because we also still have the beginner class to reopen and all the other stuff. So lots of babies to give birth to aside from this one. But yeah. And also another thing about shifting from calligraphy hobby to a business is that you'll kind of have to change your mindset to it. Priscilla's like saying, oh, I'm dying to do the invitation bootcamp course. I know, unfortunately, our one and only enrollment was in February this year. And that's why this one's coming afterwards, because a lot of our invitation design bootcamp students end up kind of taking the Calligraphy Business Kickstarter afterwards, because we don't focus so much on the business side on the invitation design bootcamp and kind of focus that in the business course per se. Is the fact that you have to shift your mindset a little bit, that now this is your work, right? Like when you think about it, when you approach your work, it's very different, because when you're doing it for yourself, it's okay. Maybe you have some mistakes here and there. At least that's for me. Like I love being able to make pretty things, but it's okay. I'm more forgiving for if it's for myself than it is for my client, because I definitely don't want to leave gaps for my clients to have a terrible experience. And you want to see with your clients is that it's not an end goal, you know? Like having a happy client is not the end of it. What you want is for them to be able to refer you, that they're so happy about your work that you want them to tell other people about it, that hey, I hired this calligrapher for my invitations, or hey, I hired this girl for a sign for my nursery, hey, I hired this calligrapher to address things for to write names for my brand activation in Chanel or whatever, and I love her work. She's great, she's fantastic. So there's so much more to the experience. Like I said, that's why your personal expertise experience needs to go up. That way, when you offer it to other people, they know that you've got that confidence to be able to do that. And it takes time to build that confidence. And part of it is really just being able to spend that time to be able to offer that to people, and to really find the time to grow your skill set and also grow your other skill set aside from calligraphy. Like I said, like learning to run your own business is not easy. I know a lot of people would be like, oh yeah, just start your business. It's so good. Like get to do what you love. But running a business is not easy at all. And in fact, a lot of businesses fail. Okay, I want to be honest about that. Not everybody has the heart to run a business, because there's a lot of pressure involved. There's a lot of skill sets involved. And sometimes, no matter how hard you work, sometimes people just don't buy it. Maybe you're not in the right target market. Maybe you're not offering the right services, or maybe it's just not the right timing. And that's why it's not for the faint-hearted. I say that, yet I've run so many businesses, but I've also had businesses that have not flown, or like I've decided to let go of because it's just not sustainable, or my heart no longer is in it, or just the market doesn't need it. And kind of like if you think about this past year alone, how many businesses did you know that were fairly large that you were shocked that they stopped doing something? And that's okay. Okay, I want to say that that's part of running a business, that you will make mistakes. And my job here in this course is to share with you some of those struggles that I've had personally in order to be able to help you avoid them and also help you build that strong foundation at the beginning of it. But it doesn't mean that you won't have mistakes with the business. It's part of it. That's how we learn the best, I think. We're stubborn people. Even if some people share with us advice, we might not follow it through. So, but we do our best, right? We do our best and see where we can go with that. And Arshibadu is asking like how proficient you should be in calligraphy before you can take this workshop. Like I said, you don't have to be an expert yet to take this course. You don't have to have a year experience in calligraphy to take this course. No, you don't need to. But when you do want to launch your business, which is something that you might do in the duration of this course or maybe afterwards or 6 months afterwards, I would like for you to have at least a year of experience. That way you have that in your belt, and that way you are more comfortable sharing your skill sets with other people as a business. Because yeah, like I said, like I want you to be able to elevate the people's experiences with calligraphy. You don't want them to be really like upset about this industry, because as a calligrapher, you are an artist. Think about when you have to commission somebody work for like a painting, for example. That's like similar to what they are asking us to do. We're providing them to be the service. Yeah. And Louisa is asking, when will the giveaway winner be announced? I'm not sure which giveaway you're talking about, because most of the giveaways we've definitely announced our winners in the Instagram stories and via email. The last one that we did though with the Vestige story, it's on their profile and we did share their story. And we don't have a current giveaway at the moment. But yeah, I know it is an expensive course. That's why we do have a payment plan. But I do believe that this is an investment towards your career. Like if you want to be able to avoid a lot of these things, or like being able to pick my brain, because this course is not just like one way of videos. It's also a two-way program where you can ask questions and get them answered. And having that guidance, personally for myself, I wish I had somebody in the industry. Every single like step and pivot in my business would tell me like, yeah, this is a good idea. Yeah, that's not a good idea. Or like, Carla, do you know who I can reach out for this? Or what can you do with things like that? So yeah. All right, everybody. I hope you guys learned a few things from my live session today. I'll try to go live again tomorrow to share a little bit more about a different side of the business. I think I probably will be talking a lot more about like the product side of business. So if you want to join, the wedding invitation side of the business, if you want to learn more about that, come join me tomorrow again in my live. See you guys. Talk to you soon.